Okay, so let's talk about credit cards. Pretty much all of us have one, right? We use them for everything. Groceries, gas, you name it. But here's the thing. What if I told you that simple piece of plastic is one of the most misunderstood and honestly potentially dangerous financial tools out there? All right, let's dive into this and really uncover how the system works. We're going to start with this number, $6,000. Now, according to the data, this is the average amount of credit card debt for an American. Maybe that sounds high to you, maybe it sounds kind of low, but it's where our story begins. And believe me, it's what happens next that's the real problem. Because of that $6,000 debt, the average person is paying $1,440 every single year. And that's not to pay down the debt itself. Nope, that's just the interest. Just think about that for a second. That money could be a vacation. It could be a serious investment. But instead, it's just gone. And that, right there, brings us to the real cost of debt. See, it goes way beyond the numbers you see on your statement. It's really about what that money could have been doing for you instead. So here's the big idea we really need to get our heads around. Credit cards are not just neutral, boring financial tools. The whole system is intentionally designed with these psychological triggers and confusing terms that, let's be honest, benefit the lender, usually by keeping you stuck in a cycle of payments. All right, so let's pull back the curtain on these mechanics. We're going to look at two of the biggest hidden traps that are built to work against you. And we'll start with something that on the surface actually seems pretty helpful. The minimum payment. You know, it feels like a lifeline when money's tight, doesn't it? But its real purpose? It's to maximize the amount of interest the bank can squeeze out of you over the longest possible time. It is, without a doubt, the slowest, most expensive way to pay off your debt. And just look at how this plays out in the real world. Let's take an example from our source, a $3,000 balance at a 24% interest rate. If you only, and I mean only, pay the minimum each month, get this. After 7 years of making payments, you would still owe $1,500. It would take you over 14 years to finally be free of that debt. And here is the punchline. On that original $3,000 debt, you would have paid a staggering $4,200 in interest alone. You ended up paying more than double the original amount, all because of that minimum payment trap. It's crazy. But the traps don't stop there. Come on, what about all the perks, right? The cashback, the points, the travel miles? Surely those are a good thing. Well, let's see what the data has to say about that. And this chart just lays it all out perfectly. Studies show that people spend somewhere between 12 and 18% more when they pay with a credit card instead of cash. So that little tiny bar on the left, that's your 1 or 2% cash back. That giant bar on the right, yeah, that's how much extra you're spending. The math just doesn't add up in your favor. Which leads to the obvious conclusion. You're probably sitting there thinking, wait a minute, so the cashback is basically just bait to get me to spend more? And the answer is, exactly. The banks know that the rewards they pay out are a tiny, tiny fraction of the extra profit they make from all that interest and increased spending. Okay, I know that was a lot of doom and gloom, but the point of this isn't to scare you, it's to equip you. So let's flip the script. Let's talk about how you can win this game and make the system work for you, not against you. First things first, we have got to completely reframe how we think about a credit score. The common belief is that a high score means you're rich or you're great with money. But the reality, it's really more of a debt score. It just measures how good you are at borrowing money and paying it back in a way that's profitable for the lenders. It's definitely important for big loans, like a mortgage, but it is not a measure of your wealth. So if you're not carrying in debt and you do choose to use credit cards, here are the 3 non-negotiable rules. 1. Keep your utilization low. Never, ever use more than 30% of your available credit. 2, and this is the big one, pay the entire balance in full every single month, no exceptions. And 3, only use it for purchases you've already planned for and have the cash to cover. Basically, treat it like a debit card that just happens to come with some perks. Now that's all well and good for someone starting fresh. But what about the millions of us who are already in that cycle of debt? Don't worry, there is a clear mathematical plan to get out as quickly and as cheaply as possible. It's called the Avalanche Method, and it is brutally efficient. Here's how it works. First, you list out every single one of your debts, and you order them by interest rate, from the highest all the way down to the lowest. You keep paying the minimum on all of them, but then you take every single extra dollar you can find, and you throw it at that one debt with the highest interest rate. Once that's paid off, you take all that money you were paying and you attack the next one on the list. Mathematically, this is the fastest way to get out of debt, and it's the one that saves you the most money in interest. So, we've covered the traps and we've laid out the escape plan. Now it's about taking action. And your first step can, and it absolutely should, happen tonight. To be clear, credit cards themselves are not evil. They're just a tool. But they are an incredibly dangerous tool if you're in the hands of someone who was never taught how they're actually designed to work. But now, you've been taught. Now you know. So here's the final thought I want to leave you with. It's a challenge, really. Tonight, I want you to pull up your credit card statement, find your interest rate, look at your balance, and then ask yourself this one simple question. Is this card working for me, or am I working for it?